Right, so welcome back to the 10-6 Diaries. So this is going to be the final meet of this season. So we're going to start where we sort of left off, which was running at the Scottish Champs. So managed to make the final, so I was happy to kind of go, one better than what I did the year prior, where I only, made it to the semi-final and didn't make it to the final. So that was nice, but I was actually, I think, like 300 slower than what I'd ran in the semi-final last year, so that was a bit of a bummer. But I feel like that perfectly sums the season up. I just feel like I've sort of been missing a gear almost, like all season. It just feels like I've been, on the back foot, like every race. And I think it just comes down to sort of the injury that happened earlier in the year. Like, I'm still new to sprinting. I don't know, a lot. I'm still sort of learning a lot as I kind of go. It's just a really steep learning curve. And I feel like in hindsight it would have been a lot better to go and do maybe some GPP after the injury, because I sort of had 5 weeks of basically doing no sprinting of any kind. I just sort of was able to jog, but I wasn't really able to obviously, get any max velocity reps. And so I think that was sort of a big thing that has probably, played into this season and has definitely sort of impacted on, why I've been running really bad. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to, talk about the training that I did after the Scottish Championships. So I'd ran that meet on the Saturday, and then by the Wednesday, I went to the track and did these 50-metre reps. So I planned to do one more meet after the Scottish, because I wasn't really satisfied with, finishing it like that. I feel like I, had more in me. And yeah, started off really strong with some 50s on the Wednesday, and I ran, I think it was a PR of 6:18 on the free lap timer. That was with the e-starter, so I was running really well, feeling really good. And this old track that's 30, I think it's 34 years old, so it's a really old track and it's not been resurfaced for a while. So to be sort of running that fast, at that track in those conditions without sort of the adrenaline, I was really happy to do that, and it was good to get a bit of confidence back. I did sort of have a little knock with the confidence because I did get injured 2 weeks before the Scottish Championships. I had a slight hamstring pull in my left hamstring, but managed to sort of rehab back and run the 3 races at the Scottish Championships without an injury or without sort of anything like that, so that was quite good. But yeah, the plan was just to sort of sprint twice a week. So I had one sort of max velocity / block session that I was doing. I just sort of combined those two into one session, which was the 50s, and then the 60s the week after. And then I had one session where I was doing some longer sprints. So I was doing some 90 meters sprint float sprint, and I did a 100 meters sprint float sprint. I've just always really sort of gravitated towards sprint float sprint reps. They always seem to really, push me on with sprinting. I've always seemed to run fast after doing those kind of reps. I don't know if it's maybe just the way that my training's been programmed that I'm gonna run fast after I've done that. It could well be that's the case, but I've just always felt good after doing them. So I thought, right, I'll add this sprinting into this training cycle. I'll do this because it's felt good in the past. And I was hoping that would, push me on, and I would run some fast times for my final meet of the year. But yeah, I was just sort of trying to just maintain volume really. So I even added in an extra day here where I just sort of did some lifts and jumps just to build in a little bit more volume so that I can kind of taper off and finish strong, hopefully, or that was the plan anyway. But you will see sort of what I ended up running at the end of the video. But yeah, so everything was going quite well. So as well, all the training that you are seeing at the moment, this is actually stuff that I just programmed myself. I've been training with John for 3 years now. So I was originally supposed to be doing hamstring rehab at this point, but since I'd ran the 3 races at the Scottish Championships, I didn't have any sort of hamstring tightness or any sort of signs that it was going to sort of recur in the next few weeks. I thought, right, I'll just sort of build on that, do some more sprinting, get some more quality reps in, and that's what I did. So as well, so I mentioned that because so yeah, John had me on like hamstring rehab, so I didn't have time to really, jump on a call with him. The days just didn't really line up for it. It's either I had like work or I had stuff on, and it's like the time zone difference can make it a bit hard to sometimes, get in contact with my coach, because he's obviously, over in America and I'm over here in the UK, so there's time zone differences, so the timings just weren't lining up. So I just sort of did my own training for this like few weeks, and I think it turned out quite well. Like I quite enjoyed the cycle. It was like stuff that I enjoyed, stuff that was fun, but I'm not really sure if it was like optimal, but I think it was, good enough. The only thing is, I maybe didn't have enough, like the only critique I would maybe like give the training that I was doing at this point was that I maybe didn't have enough like volume in the training. So I feel like it was like quite low volume, focusing on freshness, and then when I tried to taper, I tried to take even more volume off, and that's maybe when I'm like taking too much off. So I maybe should have built in a bit more volume in the first 2 weeks, and then it would have given me something to actually taper off of better. But that's sort of like in hindsight, I guess, as I sort of mentioned at the start, like it is a big learning curve, doing something like sprinting. Like I was used to sort of like training to dunk before this, which I didn't have any competitions for it. So it's like I did this, I trained for this sport that sort of, like I had goals obviously of like jumping higher, doing this, but there wasn't any like structured sort of like set competition type thing that I was doing, other than like dunk camp I suppose each year. But that was like I only got to go to dunk camp in 2019 and then 2022 because of like the pandemic and everything. So it meant that there was sort of like 2 or 3 years where I basically wasn't sort of like peaking towards anything. It was just sort of like training to jump higher. So it's like a lot different. It's a whole different kettle of fish compared to that. It is good fun though, but I think it's just a bit of a struggle sometimes. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna recap the season. You know what, I think there's like another like 5 minutes left from this video, so I suppose I could do like a little recap of this season. So yeah, started off quite strong. Was feeling really good after doing this like 20-week training block of like off-season work, and it perfectly sort of progressed me up to being really fast for the first 30 meters. And then the plan was to, like, we were starting to build in some max velocity stuff before this, in the cycle before we were going to like open up the indoors. We started to do a little bit more max velocity, and then the plan was that indoors was going to sort of act as some like really high quality max velocity work. That was the idea behind it. But I ended up getting injured 3 races in, or well, 4 races in actually, technically. But I only really got like 2, I would say, like good quality races, because the Scottish Championships I had like way too much volume in my legs, and then by the Scottish Student Championships, I had to repay the fatigue debt, and I didn't pay on time and pulled my hamstring. So that was like really annoying. And I think like a big thing that I sort of was missing after the hamstring pull was just sort of like confidence. I feel like if I'd started off my outdoor season on like a different note, like say for example I'd ran like a windy 10.8.9 or 10.8.8 or something like that, I feel like if I'd ran that to like open my season, it would have maybe like changed the whole dynamic of the season almost, because I feel like confidence is something that is like really like key when it comes to sprinting. Like you really have to sort of be confident about like everything like to do with your performance. And I feel like I've sort of like talked about this injury like so much in this series, but it's sort of been like a really big, like pivotal thing that's happened, and that sort of like affected the whole season. So, and I think it's important to try and like, get my thoughts out on it, and sort of like think about what's went wrong after the injury that's, prevented me from getting back to, where I was before the injury, how I was feeling before the injury. But I think like confidence is sort of like a key thing that's been sort of missing after that. And I feel like if I'd have had that confidence, the season would have went just a lot different. But yeah, as I say, it is what it is. We just have to now try and work on this off season, work to try and build the confidence back up through training, and I'm confident that we can do this and that I can get that 10.6 next year. But fortunately, this year it just wasn't really to be. So I ended up just running, I think it was 11.04 and 11.05, 11.05 for my final meet of the year. So it was, yeah, just disappointing performance, but like all the training in the run up to it was really good. Like I was running, you know, like PRs, like every day that I sprinted I ran like a PR of sorts. So that was nice, and I was really feeling, you know, good going into it. I don't know if I maybe did like too much in the shakeout session. I did some jumps, and I don't know if I maybe overdid it with the jumps, or I don't know if it was just that I'm just not like that yet. But yeah, you know, it was just a bit disappointing to not run how I was hoping to run. And I think, you know, I'm going to try and use what I've learnt this year to try and build, you know, a better season, build on a better season next year. But yeah, I feel like I'm sort of like rambling at this point, honestly. But yeah, it was just like very disappointing to run, you know, this slow. Just feel like I don't know, I feel like I should be better than, you know, what I have done. But I guess I'm just gonna have to try and prove that next season. But yeah, I think that's all I really want to say for this video, so I guess I'll just leave the, you know, the next few clips. You can just sort of see it raw, see the raw clips from this meet. I did some warm-ups here. But yeah, that is about it. So thank you for watching this season. I don't know if anyone wants me to do a full season recap. I might just, you know, skip that because I feel like there's not anything interesting to really recap. And I've sort of done the recap, I guess, in this video. But I feel like I've sort of rambled this whole video. I feel like it's been all over the place. So apologies if that's the case. But yeah, I think I'm just going to start the next episode of this series as sort of the next sort of 4-week training cycle. Then I'll do the next sort of like 2-week training cycle that I did, and then finally get around to what I'm like currently doing as of like today when I upload this. So yeah, that's been it. So I hope, you know, you've enjoyed this video as well. I'm trying something different. I'm trying to do the videos without music. Someone said it would be better to do it that way, so we're gonna do that, and it'll save me, you know, trying to find a copyright free sound as well, which is great. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the series so far. You know, stay tuned because I'm willing to, you know, go to lengths to make sure that I achieve this 10.6, and hopefully it will be next year. You know, it will be next year. You've got to be confident about it. It will be next year.